Hi, I'm Tony Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy. Hi, I'm Tony Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy. You know, we're here at the home of Joni Yoswein, and Joni is the president and owner of Yoswein, New York. Thank you, Joni, for hosting us today, and we're just looking forward to all the great information you're going to impart. Because before the show started, I was just talking about why a lobbyist is important, and I was meeting with a nonprofit organization the other day, and she's brand new to the borough. She's trying to chase down these elected officials. And, you know, it's kind of like you can spin your wheels sometime, and you're the kind of person that stops us from spinning our wheels. But with that, talk to us about how you got involved in lobbying, because it's very male-dominated politics still in New York State, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. I started my firm 20 years ago after having a wonderful chapter in my life where I was a very important staffer to a former speaker of the New York State Assembly. And his name was Mel Miller, and he provided wonderful opportunities for me to see how government, the good government, can do. And what I learned during that period never left me. What had happened after that in my little career was I ran for the Assembly. I became an Assembly member. I was very, very proud to be in the Assembly, to represent my constituents, which were in Flatbush and Park Slope and a piece of Windsor Terrace. It was an exciting experience. It's not something that I had always wanted to do. I kind of liked being in the background, like a lot of women. We're the first ones to get in the office. Right. We're the last ones to leave. We're very goal-oriented, and we want to get the job done. Right. But you know what? It was those experiences working so hard and having opportunities and appreciating government that gave me the ability and the confidence to start my own business, and that was 20 years ago. And I had a stint with the Department for Aging in the city as a deputy commissioner, which was also very, very interesting. I was in charge of a bureau that was responsible for all the senior centers and home care programs in the city. So it was a wonderful experience because I could make things happen. It's not that I was such a star. It was that I knew how to make decisions. And I wasn't really afraid of consequences. And what happens sometimes when you go into an agency, there's a bureaucracy there. Right. And so to find someone that's willing to make decisions, I mean, the truth of the matter is, what could happen to me? I had lost an election. You lose an election, you can get past anything. That was horrible.
Now, when you lost the election, how did that feel?
Oh, it sucked.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
It was awful.
Because they claim that's one of the reasons that women aren't in politics, is we just don't like losing these kinds of things.
No, I think there are other reasons.
Of course,
I think that it's particularly difficult, maybe for a woman. It's difficult for a man too. It's publicly, you're humiliated because the majority of people decided not to vote for you for whatever reason. They wanted your opponent more.
Right.
It was hurtful, and the circumstances were difficult at the time. That said, some people, you learn how to make lemonade out of lemons.
Absolutely.
And I learned how to do that. And so what I had done 20 years ago is I said, you know what, there are all these guys out there, no women, or very few women that I recall, and they didn't have the respect for government. They didn't work as hard as I did. They didn't have the relationships that I had after all the years on the inside and the outside. And I gave up my deputy commissionership, and I started a business. And I knew there were two things I needed to do starting a business as a woman. I needed to have a Manhattan address.
And listen to that, women. Right.
It's different now. I needed a Manhattan address 20 years ago, and I needed to have someone answer my phones. Because I needed anyone that was going to call me to think I was established. And I was not. I might have had a very good reputation, but starting a business was very difficult, and I struggled for many years. And I struggled because I really wanted to pick and choose the clients that I represented. I didn't want to be the kind of lobbyist, and some are very successful. It's just not who I wanted to be. the kind of lobbyist that would have 100 clients, and you'd ask elected officials for favors. I need a courtesy meeting. I need this. I need that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just not what I wanted to do. I wanted to feel good about who I represented. I wanted to be able to go to an elected official, passionately make my case, and say why I need their help, whether it's funding, whether it's legislation for Brooklyn HealthWorks, which was the only legislation for small businesses in the state of New York. So there were a number of things that I'm particularly proud of. But it, again, and I know I've repeated myself, but you have to appreciate government. And government doesn't always work great, but that's more of a reason to try to work with elected officials and guide them. Because a good lobbyist will help public policy. It will, you bring more information to the debate, and that's good for public policy.
Yes. So, Joni, when you say Yoswein, New York offers a new approach to public affairs, is this what you mean, where you work on issues that you really care about, where you can see and make impact?
Yeah, I think that our approach is, and we distinguish ourselves by saying a new approach, but also a boutique firm. And I'll give you an example. We represent St. Francis College, small college in downtown Brooklyn. I've represented them for many years, and I'm very, very proud. And one of the reasons I'm so proud is the St. Francis story. 60% of the kids that are graduating St. Francis College are first-time graduates, college graduates from their families.
I'm hearing passion here.
And to me,
I'm hearing conviction.
to me, that means something. And it doesn't mean that someone represents a big ass. Can I say that? Big ass?
Oh,
Yeah, you can say that. You can say that.
A big, a larger, independent college. There's not a story to tell. But you know what? That's not the story I want to tell. I want to tell the story about St. Francis College, or the Chamber of Commerce, or chess in the schools, getting more elected officials to have programming in their schools, for their constituents, that are going to teach young kids how to play chess.
You know, but the lobbying world is complex. You know, a lot of rules. How do you stay on top of all of that?
Well, it helps to start with integrity,
Which I'm glad you mentioned that.
which I have and my firm has, and knowing what's right or wrong, and passing the smell test, and feeling good about what you do. I'm not someone that resents the lobbying laws. I don't think there's anything wrong that I need to provide to the lobbying commission periodic reports on who my clients are, what I've done for them, how much they pay me. That's okay. So
This is all public information that has to be.
it's all public information, and I don't think it's unreasonable.
And
It's
you have to
transparency.
register. Can I just ask a really basic question, and to just define for people what lobbying is? Because I think there's a lot of misconception out there.
Well, I think it depends upon what your client needs. If it's to effectuate legislation, you are lobbying the Assembly and the Senate and the governor's office or the city council and the mayor's office to make something happen. If it's to access funding, it's trying to identify where there might be money for your organization and then how to access it. Who are the people that can help? I'm going back to HealthWorks again, only because I am proud of that, as I said. But if not for Assemblyman Joe Lentil, the chair of the Brooklyn delegation in the Assembly, and Senator Marty Golden, a Republican who represents Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge, there are thousands of Brooklyn families that would not have health insurance. It was because the idea to do something to create a small business, access to health insurance for small businesses, and the know-how to find Joe Lentil, because Joe is the kind of person that would appreciate the opportunity and to use his power to make something happen. And then the governor's office, and then to get it, and then to...
So you make the connection.
Yes.
You make the connection.
Collaboration is important, and there are Republicans and there are Democrats, and I think sometimes elected officials forget they all make so many sacrifices to be in elected office, and you're there to help your constituents and to make life better, and to create policies that will help your constituents and help the people in the city and state of New York. And it's not always about partisanship. It's about doing what's right for the greater good.
Now, this whole area, one area that you work in is land use. Now, that could be rather contentious. Talk to us about how you navigate those words, especially in a place like Brooklyn where the land's just not there and everybody wants it, or, you know.
Well, I think it goes back to the boutique firm. So we do lobbying in city and state, and then we have a component of the firm that we do land use projects. One of the projects that we worked on was the IKEA, the first IKEA in the city of New York. A law firm came to us and said, we need help in the community. We need help with the elected officials. And the first thing I did was, well, you know, you're a Swedish firm. What are your policies? And oh my God, their policies, they're non-union, but their policies are better than any union could ever provide. Wow. And their philosophy comes from a socialist country. Right. So part-time workers, of course they should have health care. Of course they should make an effort.
Democratic system.
Should make an effort to hire people that had been incarcerated. I mean, oh my God, I needed to help this company. And we had a lot of very legitimate issues about traffic and other things. And that's okay. You're building in the city of New York. It's okay to have to jump over hoops. It's okay to get input from the community and show respect to the community. You're going to get a better project done if people feel that they're part of it, if people are going to participate in the debate. So whether it was the IKEA project or Brooklyn Law School or a hotel we've done in Manhattan or a big Flushing project in Queens, we've been all over the city. And again, that same principle of our own integrity and having the respect for communities and people for them to provide their input creates a better project. You can't be afraid of controversy.
And do you think that then these projects, it's helpful to have you and your firm as the external voice that brings all of these parties together?
Yeah,
something that the community or the organizations couldn't do on their own.
Yeah, because of the relationships that we have on the ground, and then the reputation we have, that if we're going to go to a community board meeting and say something, we're going to be back the next month. So if we didn't do the right thing, everyone knows where I live, and that's okay, because that credibility helps us with the next project or whatever else we'll do after that.
Oftentimes, you know, our city council, they're term limited, you know, so how do you keep up with all of the change that we're seeing out here in city government? Faces and people are changing all the time. How do you keep up with that?
Well, I don't believe in term limits. I believe that elections are the time to get people out to vote, to say this woman or guy deserves re-election or not. And that we need as a society to do something to motivate people. And for them to understand that voting affects who they represent and the kind of representation they'll have.
Right. The learning curve is very difficult, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're in.
So on that point, to what extent do you help educate electeds, whether, you know, or provide them guidance and advice?
Well, I think that's also very unique to our firm because I've been on both sides. I've been a powerful staffer, I've been a member, and now I'm on the outside. So, and we know that I respect what they do. There are some great elected officials and maybe not so great, just like in any profession.
Not so great, doctor.
In any profession. So I think that when a member asks me what I think of the Garner verdict, of an issue, of the standardized test for high schools, they're asking me not as a lobbyist, they're asking me as Joni, someone who's been around for a long time. So they're asking me really as Joni, personally, what do you think, rather than Joni as a lobbyist. And when I have conversations with many elected officials, sometimes I say, I'm not lobbying you. Let's just talk about what's going on. Because you know what? You guys should be doing something about it. And that's also a very, I think, unique situation to have the relationship with many of the electeds and also the respect that many have for me and my firm.
And would you say that in some of those kinds of conversations, being a woman is an advantage, that you're able to say things to some of these folks that men are not able to say to each other?
Or does it
I
work the other
think
way?
I think that I've never resented being a woman in the business, but I think that I've had to work harder, and growing the business has been much more difficult. Even after 20 years of being established,
Right.
it's tough.
So that brings to mind, what about barriers of entry, to that type of a business? I mean, you've touched on it a little bit. It sounds like, there are maybe hidden barriers that, women need to face or be aware of more so.
I don't know. I know that my philosophy has always been that if I can, I hire a woman. I'm very proud to be the first firm that hired account executive of color. Two of my former employees, both of color, have started their own lobbying firms. That makes me very proud. And I like the idea of creating opportunities for women. I didn't mention earlier, I happen to have a family firm, and two members of the firm happen to be men, my husband and my stepson. What are you going to do? I love them.
Yes, yes.
Now, in thinking about politics, and sometimes, it can be in certain scenarios that you're on the same camp with people one day, and then the next day you might be opposing each other. How do you work through that piece of it? The fact that it's a game, and this was one game, now we're on to the next game.
Well, it's about respect. And for me, it's a little more than a game because of my passion. So last night, I had dinner with an elected official who I admire and I've known for 30 years. And today, I was at City Hall with a client, and he adamantly disagreed with my client on an issue. I respect him. We disagree. He's wrong. But it's okay. But it's okay. Because I respect him in that he services his constituents. He cares. He does his homework. He's in his district office on a Friday. He answers his mail. He has a sense of
You're saying all the good things a good elected official does. Right.
he has a sense of what's going on in the community. His staff is functional. That's important because that's the signal to his constituents and others that he cares or she cares. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that.
So it's not disagreeing just to disagree. It's about he has an opinion on this particular issue.
Yes, and I respect that. There are some people that will disagree to disagree.
Right.
Or that
Partisan.
don't like that I won the last issue, so they want to stick it to me. All right.
But you mentioned
I'll
something
win.
very important, Joni. You talked about accessibility, and a good politician has an open door.
Yes.
They seem mighty busy, though.
Right.
Well, that's the functional staff component, right? The functional staff keeps the door open even if they're not available.
You do a lot of budget lobbying, and and that I've always, wondered, how do you balance that? Because you're asking for a number of groups. How do you make and you get results? So how do you make that happen?
It's a
That's
good
delicate.
question.
Yeah.
It's a good question, and it also goes to who we are. I have not taken a new budget client on in probably 4 or 5 years. And I've had plenty of opportunities. And the reason is I don't want to go to elected officials again and again for money. And for those clients that I do help to open the doors and provide money for, like the Chamber, like Chess in the Schools, or New Victory Theater, or St. Francis College, the Brooklyn Chamber.
Pride and joy.
There are no conflicts. I feel good about representing them. There's always a partnership with my team and the client. I'm very sensitive to asking too much of government because we're going to go back.
Right.
And you don't want the door closed on you. And anytime you're going to access public money, you want to make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's and using that money effectively and efficiently. Because one, it's public money, and two, you want to probably ask for more.
How do you think that we can, as this knowledge is powerful, how do you think we can educate our youth so that they're more well-versed and aware of, as she mentioned, what lobbying is and the impact on community?
It's a good question. I think that I think our education system, there are some huge gaps and problems. And I think that learning a respect for government, and it's kind of how we started the discussion, is important no matter how old you are, or who you are, or where you are in your profession, or in school, or in life. So internships are most fabulous opportunity for high school, college, to have the opportunity to learn how a bill becomes a law.
Absolutely.
What happens? What happens at a committee meeting? Why are some issues become more important? The horse carriage bill.
Because there is such a thing as special interests. You know, there's organizations and there are also special interests.
And again, there are special interests like the real estate industry. But you know what? Thank goodness for the real estate industry, because the real estate industry builds things, and in building things, you're creating jobs. So I don't worry about special interests. I just think that everyone needs a seat at the table. And again, this goes back to the lobbying world. I'm a proud lobbyist. It's insulting to me when I can't buy a cup of coffee for an elected official because of the ethics laws. What? Why can't I do that? We're going through a period where
Other people don't have the same values.
right, and there have been a lot of issues. It's been very, very disappointing and hurtful to see an elected official get jammed up. At the same time, and I'm not making a pitch for pay raises for elected officials, but my God, these guys, generic, have not gotten a pay raise in about 16 years. Wow. And that is...
So how can we expect people, A, to survive and want to serve with all the scrutiny
well,
that's happening
and
in our
wanting
society?
to serve? What?
So much
Exactly.
and wanting?
And that's...
Exactly. Right.
And that's a serious dilemma. And it's undermining government being as powerful as it could and should be. And
How did we get there, though? I mean, you know, what did something happen? You know, is it a complex answer in terms of?
It's very complex because when you're voting on a pay raise
Right.
at the same time where the legislature it has such a lack of respect from the public, you're going to get a raise.
Really? What are you doing? What have you done for me lately?
So it's very complicated, and the politics in the equation, it takes over.
So what happens, this is a more difficult question, when you can't deliver? How do you deal with that? Because of course there are going to be times when somebody says, I just can't do this, you know?
You're just honest.
Okay, right.
It doesn't mean I didn't do my job.
Right.
It's illegal to take money from a client that's contingent upon delivering, as it should be. At the same time, it's a killer when you can't deliver, when you do everything you can, when you think you put everything in place, and it doesn't happen. And you hope that your client still respects you and the job you did, and wants you to continue. But it's you can't always deliver. I've been very lucky, but we have a great team and we work very hard, and we also pick and choose.
Now, I'm getting ready to circle back a little bit, but, you know, why don't you think there aren't more women in politics?
I think that pay is a legitimate issue because the sacrifices you need to make. 2, I think women have a much harder time raising money for elected office, and part of that has to do with networks, and part of that has to do with our makeup. Asking people for money is not part of who most of us are. It doesn't make someone less of a person that they are aggressive and can ask for money. It's hard to do, and it's essential.
Essential, right, exactly.
And it's something that I like to do to help women candidates, particularly women of color. I do a tremendous amount. I do some fundraising, but I do a lot of meet and greets because I believe that if you create an opportunity for smart women to meet other people, then there's more of a chance they'll invest in those people.
I wonder, what message do you have for women that either are interested in starting their own businesses or going into lobbying, to give them that strength, courage, and, you know, overcome that fear they may have?
it's hard to overcome a fear, man. That's like deeply psychological.
Right, but it's about confidence.
Yeah, right,
And
at
the
some
more
point, it's
the
you.
more women will appreciate more women.
That's an interesting point. Women appreciating other women, right?
I'm a believer that women do. And that old stereotype that women are backstabbing. You know what? Some are, whatever.
Right. Some
I
are,
believe,
not all of us.
I
No.
believe women are great. And some of you have participated in my margarita appreciation night.
Yeah, like that margarita appreciation
Which-
night, Brooklyn.
One of the
But there's a reason for it.
there was a
for it.
reason. There is a reason, and that reason is a subliminal reminder that it's very empowering when women are together.
Right.
And as professionals from different walks of life and different experiences, different life experiences, to just be in a room and hanging, and it's powerful.
Right.
And particularly when someone will say, weren't you at a meeting, or didn't I meet you at this conference?
Right.
And all of a sudden there are relationships. And with men, in many ways, there are these natural networks. And with women, it's not that natural.
Right.
So
Even though they think we're relationship oriented, the networks, right?
Well, it has to be intentional to sort of go outside of your comfort zone, right? And say, I'm going to go to this event. I don't know who I'm going to meet, but
Right.
someone said I should go. And then once you get there, it's
We're older.
amazing.
Right. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode, but I really appreciate you, Joni Yoswein. I love
Thank you.
all that you have said. Thank you for your generosity. That is your brand. You're a generous, generous woman, and thank you so much. I don't want to sit here and cry over here.
I don't either.
But
All
that
my
is
makeup.
all. But that's all the time we have for Brooklyn Savvy. We will see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.